After the release of Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, a discussion was ignited over whether this movie was better than its predecessor, Into the Spider-Verse. There have been many opinions on this. I side under the belief that it is worse than Into the Spider-Verse for one key reason, and I really want to discuss this and how Into the Spider-Verse handles it so well in all of the areas where Across the Spider-Verse pitfalls. This one mysterious metric that makes Into the Spider-Verse so much better, in my opinion, is pacing. Pacing is a word very commonly thrown around in reviews, for good reason, because it's very useful. Pacing is a sliding scale. For movies where the pace is so slow you get bored and uninvested with the plot, to movies where everything is moving so fast where you're having trouble comprehending it all. Both of these are bad, so movies often try to shoot in between them. That's just how you make a good movie. Now, this is easier said than done. In fact, it's impossible. You're shooting at an infinitely small target. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an excellent attempt. The thing usually done by movies and movie critics to combat this is they draw a border around this infinitely small target for an acceptable radius. Any movie with pacing that falls in here is good enough, where complaining about it is just being nitpicky. However, the targets can be in different places for different people, as what different people comprehend as good pacing for different types of movies can severely differ. So, there are a few rules to get consistently pretty decent pacing. All of these, ITSV does well, and ATSV does less well. The first rule for preferable pacing is to have the pacing weave around the characters of the story, most specifically the protagonist. Most movies, but especially the Spider-Verse movies, want the viewers to feel themselves in the shoes of the main character, relate to them, connect with their experiences, and overall like the character more. But how can they do this? Well, one of the largest elements contributing to this is pacing. The actual speed of your life varies around your emotions. When you're happy, time just flies by. When you're nervous, panicked, angry or scared, things might go by in a flash. Or if you're particularly anxious, then it may feel like you're moving in slow motion. And if you're calm and casual, then life will go by not too fast but not too slow, at a pace where you get to stop and smell the roses. This is portrayed very well in the original Spider-Verse. When Miles is walking to school and connecting with everyone all around him, we get a nice slow and steady pace where we get to take in all of the details. Then, when he gets nervous and runs through the school or gets chased by the Prowler, everything goes very quickly and you don't have time to look at all the details and it all just washes over you, like how the situation washes over Miles. And then, in the later fight scenes where he's more calm and controlled, you feel like you're right there with him, taking everything in, but also being able to look only at the broader image. Now, how does Across the Spider-Verse handle this? The pacing in Across the Spider-Verse often feels like it's trying to weave around the actual story and not the protagonist or protagonists. The movie keeps a very steady and similar pace throughout, with a slight increase in speed in the middle, but nothing too notable. This creates a sense of distancy between you and the protagonists, even if their struggles and arcs are really good and well handled and relatable. The pacing is just a bit too sloppy. But there are two other tips that I have to teach. So let's move on to tip number 2. The next strategy is to split your movie into easily differentiated sections. You can do this by changing the mood, storytelling techniques, and most importantly, the pacing. If it's split into several similarly lengthed sections, then it will be easier for a viewer to sit through. The original Spiderverse does an amazing job of it. Every single scene is so different and diverse from one another, partly because of the amazing musical score or the amazing character interactions, but a lot of it does come down to the pacing. However, in Across the Spiderverse, we spend a bit of time in this universe, and then a bit in that, then a lot in that, then a bit in that. It doesn't really nail the evenly lengthed part, and having only 5 sections would be okay if your movie weren't 2.5 hours long. Okay, the final strategy both seems incredibly obvious, but is also the entire reason I'm making this video in the first place. What is it? It is to have the pacing speed up as the movie goes along. Now, of course, this doesn't mean it should just start off slow and then get faster and faster and faster. No, it still has to vary between scenes and reflect the character's emotions. However, the general curve of it should be going up towards the end. This is for a few reasons. One of them is that the end of a movie usually represents the protagonist's mastery of a goal, and because of the first rule, that would mean that the movie goes faster. And the second reason is that an ending is much more satisfying and can resonate with a viewer more if it's like a fast punch. Oh, but Across the Spiderverse has a cliffhanger ending. Yeah? What about that? The viewer still deserves their conclusion, their payoff. It needs to be quick and fast. The entire ending of Across the Spiderverse just feels like it's dragging on, and it lacks the emotional resonance if they had just revealed the cliffhanger, because it is an amazing cliffhanger all in one punch. Now, this final rule does not only imply that a movie ends fast, but also that it starts slow. Now, starting slow is a good idea for movies, with an asterisk. You do want the introduction of your movie to grip the audience and captivate their attention. However, once they settle into the world and surroundings, you do want to lower the pace and make it more casual. Across the Spiderverse does have an amazing introduction, but seems to start in full movie mode. This is fine, I don't have too much of a problem with it, but it doesn't do great for the bell curve, especially since it kind of feels like the pacing only changes in the middle of the movie, which is a bit weird, and you don't really want to have that. Now, how does the original Spiderverse handle this? Well, it uses the framing device of, alright, let's do this one last time, which is actually a very clever decision. It helps introduce the viewers to the atmosphere, the comedy style, and the world building, and of course the experimental animation. And then the casual, slow, calm movie begins. And whilst of course Across the Spiderverse does try the same thing, it just feels slower and almost forced in there around the regular story beat. What I'm trying to say is it feels like this movie starts in the middle, meaning it has no time to start. And you can't have a movie that's just a middle and an end. You're going to have to stretch it out, and you can't stretch that out for 2.5 hours. Now, is all this to say Across the Spiderverse is bad? Oh, absolutely not. Is this even to say that the pacing in Across the Spiderverse is generally bad? No, not that either. It just has a few sections where it can be touched up and a few holes in the wall, but it is still an incredible movie that deserves your attention. I've definitely exaggerated most of my opinions. First of all, so I can make a stronger point, and second of all, because I am not very good at writing scripts.